All right, good evening, everybody. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Town of Darien, Connecticut. It's Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. Couple of postponements and continuations before we get to the calendar. We're going to open and immediately continue calendar number 4-2023. This is the application of Wilder Gleason for the house at home at 3 Haskell Lane. And we're going to continue that until our July meeting. Woody, what's the date for the July meeting?
July 12th is what we
July 12th.
finally set it at.
Calendar 4-223 is continued until July the 12th. Okay, I don't know how many times we can continue that, but it's been on our docket for a
We're
while.
almost done with the Haskell Lane matter.
Oh,
End of July is,
that's it? Okay. Make sure that Wilder knows that.
yeah.
Okay, good. The next one that we're going to open and immediately continue to the July 12th meeting is calendar number 13-2023. It's the application Sarah Zagrowski for the property at 34 Crimmins Road. That application is now continued until July the 12th. All right? We're good? We're now going to continue on with our public hearing, of which we only have one this evening, but I did want to get to it tonight because, while it can be a little bit complicated, I would ask our esteemed attorneys to keep it brief and tell us the facts and just take us through the application. So this is calendar number 12, this is calendar number 12-2023, the application of Amy Zapatakis of Rucci Law on behalf of Mark and Stasha Cohen for the property known as 114 5 Mile River Road. Okay, I think we're ready, Amy. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. My name is Amy Zapatakis, Rucci Law Group. I'm joined tonight by my clients, Mark and Stasha Cohen, who are the owners as trustees of the property, along with Patrick Scher from Redness and Mead, who's the project engineer. So this is concerning 114 5 Mile River Road. It's a 0.94 acre parcel in the R1/2 zone. The reason we're before you, the main reason we're before you, is that the lot is slightly oddly shaped in that it is narrow towards the road and gets wider as we go back towards the back of the property. However, in the back of the property, we have this large pond and associated wetlands. Currently on the property, there's an existing legally non-conforming house that was originally constructed in the 1900s. That house is non-conforming as to setbacks and as to FEMA elevation. In 2001, a prior owner was granted a variance of section 406 to put an addition on the house within a portion of the lot that's below the minimum width, and a variance of section 825 to allow construction below the flood elevation. So the application that's before you now, we're planning to demolish the existing house and build a new house, which is conforming as to setbacks and is conforming as to flood elevation. The one issue, though, that we're not able to overcome is the building width, the lot width issue. The portion of the lot that the existing house is in is undersized, and it is pretty much where we would like to rebuild the house in the same area. Again, in order to keep the house away from the wetlands, away from the pond, and there's sort of a natural meadow between the pond and the existing house. So basically that's our hardship, is these wetlands and ponds, and that was found to be a hardship at the time of the 2001 application and the time that variance was granted. While the house is towards the front of the lot, we are still well behind the front yard setback. So we're not asking for any setback variances. And the house is, let me see if I can make this work. Yeah. This is an aerial view of the street. The house is basically in line with the other houses along 5 Mile River Road. Now, I want to be careful with how I say that. That is We did take that into consideration when the house was being cited, or the applicant and his architect did. However, we're not agreeing that section 372 applies. 372 says if you've got a common setback, that you can apply a greater setback than the front yard setback. We are not, we're not saying that we think that is applicable in this case. It is a point that we've looked at, but by example, the Planning and Zoning Commission just recently approved a front yard pool on the house to the north of this lot, which is, again, behind the front yard setback, but well in front of the line of houses along this street. So the other thing that the applicant and his architect have done is try to vary the roof lines. There are a number of sort of indentations on the house in order to avoid having this monolithic mass of a house. A lot of times what happens when you try to take a house up above the flood zone is you end up, as you raise it, you end up with these solid foundation walls, which are generally problematic for the neighbors to have to look at. So the design actually does try to move this house away from the neighbors. But actually, before I move off of this slide, so that you understand why this is important, the lot to the south is let me get the exact numbers here. The lot to the south is 50 feet wide and less than half an acre. So it is a fully non-conforming lot to the south. The house on the lot to the south is 3 feet from the property line. So that neighbor is very close. Their house is not conforming as to setbacks, as to just about everything. So, and the current house on 114 5 Mile River is within the side yard setback to the south as well. So the houses currently on that property line are extremely close. So the new design tries to be sensitive to that. And this is a view from the front, but what we've tried to do is show the dimensions so that you can see that while the first floor complies with the front yard, with the side yard setback, the house then sort of steps back and is not just one face looking to the neighbor at that side. And you've got the architectural plans in the packet that show this as well. And I can even, I can even give you some of the measurements back for the second floor, because it's a little hard to see, I know, on that screen. We've got the second floor is, oops, that's the wrong thing, sorry, just give me 1 second here. There we go. So we have the second floor at the highest point is 30.2 feet away from the property line. This section that is pushed further back on the lot is 27.5 feet away from the property line. And then the house itself is 20 feet away from the property line. So we're really trying to vary so that there isn't this big, huge monolith right in their face. Let's see. There's also a great deal of landscaping planned for that side of the property as well. So basically, our proposed new house reduces the nonconformities of the existing house by moving it out of the side yard setback and above the female elevation. But due to the pre-existing hardship of the location of the wetlands and the pond, we are still asking you for a variance of section 406 to allow construction of the home in the portion of the lot that is, and I think I didn't say this before, it's 89 feet wide at the narrowest point in front of the house, as opposed to the required 100 feet wide. So unless you have any questions on that, I have a second part of this. Yes?
Can you assess for us in some way, because it's unclear to me from the plans, where the lot becomes conforming as to width? So where, I don't know if the southern property line is 392.38 feet, that's the relevant number, but where along there does 89 feet grow to 100? So said differently, where could you build something that would be within the 100-foot width? Is that on here somewhere?
Yeah.
No, I see it's 100 here, but where does it first become 100? Is that the
There.
first place it becomes 100?
I don't know.
Sorry, introduce yourself if
Oh,
you're going to talk
I'm
instead of
Patrick
me.
Sherwood with Rennis and
Okay.
the professional engineer licensed in the state of Connecticut. The 100-foot lot width occurs. on the
Right, yeah, I saw that.
western-
So nowhere to the west of that? If
to the
that's east of that,
Correct.
is there 100?
Everything
That's the
is
first place it
deficient
hits 100?
Beyond that,
Okay.
yes.
So, okay, understood. So the only place you could build and be within the conforming width would be that space to the west of the 100-foot and east of the wetland line?
Correct. And then we.
And what is, and that's what, like 20-some feet, maybe?
I would say approximately 20 feet to the 50-foot upland review area
Right.
with another 50 feet between that and the wetland itself.
Gotcha, okay.
So Amy, you're using the existing foundation of the house, you're pretty much replacing the scale of this house with a new house that's compliant and set back further?
So we're not using anything that's there because of the fact that it's, it's below the flood elevation. We've got to raise it up, we have to add flood venting and all that into the foundation. So we're not reusing, but we are building on that same site.
Okay. And expanding, yes, because you're using that and then you're gonna
Right.
go out, I assume those tiered
Right.
portions are additional.
Well, we do have on the survey, you can see where the old house is. And actually, you can see it a little bit on that aerial view, which I think is over there, that you can, what is shown, the dotted line is the new house. What's there is the actual house on that picture.
So what portion of that is in the setback to current house?
The portion of the, let me go over here to show you. So
This is what I wanted.
Yes.
the part of the house.
Just that little, so it's just a small portion?
It's a small
I see, it's okay,
portion of it,
okay.
yes,
But
But-
more importantly, you're coming into compliance with FEMA.
correct, yes.
Amy, how large square feet is the existing house?
3,700,
The existing house is 3,700 square feet.
And the new one?
about 4,000 excluding the garage.
Okay, all right. well,
Are you doing a lower level a basement? I assume not, because of the, okay. Finishing third floor?
No,
And just because we have to make an assessment if we were to approve this, that this is the minimum adjustment necessary. How many bedrooms, to give us a little, that kind of context? I got the 4,000 square feet, no finished third floor, but what are the bedroom?
those are all on the architectural plans, but I don't know, do you want to come up?
Is it okay if I go ahead?
If you
and-
come up
Please.
to
Come
that.
up, but you have to come up here, Mark.
So the existing house is.
Just introduce yourself if you would.
Mark Cohen. I'm the owner of 114 5 Mile River Road. The existing house is a 3-bedroom house on the second floor. This house is also a 3-bedroom house on the second floor, but the town will designate it as a 5-bedroom house because there is an office on the ground floor which will have a half bath and a audiovisual closet. And there's also a yoga room over the garage, which will have a half bath. No, the yoga room has a full bath. And those two will be designated by the town as bedrooms. It's, as I said, it's a 3-bedroom house, but with 2 auxiliary rooms.
Right. I believe the town bases it on the number of bathrooms,
Right,
so,
yeah.
but understood, thank you.
And are you adding a pool to the house?
Yes, there is a pool proposed. It's not a large pool, and it's not in the front yard like we saw on the neighbor's property.
Okay.
Could
It's,
you tell me what a plunge pool is?
Do you want to get back up, Mark?
I'll stay.
I think it's a small.
I love a plunge.
It is a small pool.
Okay,
So a plunge pool is bigger than a hot tub.
Okay.
But smaller than a real pool because you can't really swim laps in it. It's a pool that is just meant for hanging out in.
okay.
But
all
Mark,
right.
it costs as much as a regular pool.
All the same equipment, that's correct.
Okay,
And the mechanical equipment, Amy, where will that be? Is that within setback or is it?
It is within setback, and you'll see on the patio where the pool is located, there's actually a small accessory structure that we're putting all of the pool equipment in.
This proposed cabana?
There's a cabana and then a proposed structure on the other side of the pool that is the pool equipment shed.
I see that you're eliminating the barn, which is on the side yard, no?
No, they're not, no, that's the next
That's
thing.
my,
they want.
that's my second.
Oh, I got it, that'll got B, okay, continue.
So, proposed generator, yes, you may, just one second, mechanical structure, so this.
I'm missing that, where's that?
Right there, this,
Got it.
okay,
got
sorry,
it.
didn't mean to write on your
That's
thing.
okay.
Whoa, you just did.
I just wrote on it, okay, got it.
Okay, Woody, please.
Where's the AC equipment gonna go? In that back patio structures?
Yes, that all of the mechanicals for the house and the pool will be in that mechanical structure.
Okay.
And it's nice by making it as an accessory building, it's of course fully screened from all the neighbors, and that'll help reduce noise as well.
Mhm.
Did you get any neighbor support?
Yes, we received support from all of the neighbors, with the exception of the neighbor to the south on the 50-foot wide lot that I mentioned before, and Attorney Maslin is here, I believe he's representing the neighbors to the south.
Is that 116 to the south? Okay,
Is that
doesn't
fair?
really matter, I don't really care. Okay, well, there's a lot going on here with the
116.
barn and the cabana and the pool and
Pool, yeah.
the
Lot terrace.
and the structure for the equipment, but, okay, let's keep going.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Do you have a slide of this? The overhead view here, the aerial view?
Yes.
Could you- I couldn't see
Oh,
it. I just-
I'm sorry, yeah.
Thank you.
Of course, now I've forgotten how to use this.
John, did you see this by any chance?
Yeah,
Sorry, it's not, let me see if I can make it bigger.
AC pad. Well, I-
So the pool to the north is
think-
neighbor directly to the north?
Correct, yes.
Up there.
Yeah, and we've drawn that on because it was not on that property as of the time that this, that this aerial photo was taken. This is the aerial photos from the town GIS maps.
Okay.
Amy, the way this reads, it shows that the AC pad is outside of the property line. I think that there was just missing an arrow on
I
it.
think.
Which,
that
what are you looking
That's
at?
the neighbors, I think.
I think, yeah, it must be.
I'm sorry, do you mind if I approach so I can just see
No,
what
I
you're
don't
looking
mind
at?
at all.
This is why I asked about the mechanicals. It says AC pad outside of the, that must be.
Oh, that's on the neighbors.
Got it, okay.
The neighbors are right there, right there.
Yes.
And that, I'm just curious to know. So, Amy,
So you're looking
so
at Woody's, that's what I was.
this AC pad that Barb just pointed out.
Correct.
Okay. Is this the neighbor to the east that is with the
That's the south.
50-foot width?
Correct, to the south, yes. So
South.
if I'm
South.
looking at.
I meant south.
Yes, if you're looking at Woody's markup, he's basically
Interesting.
colored in red their house.
Oh,
Really close.
that's their
This is the one
house.
That's their house.
3 feet
Yeah,
from the
3
property
feet from the
line.
property line.
Okay.
Okay, okay.
And the new structure is moving further away from the property line.
Correct, because the current structure is within the setbacks over there. And so we're moving the structure away, and we're also, like I said, rather than having one wall, we're trying to have some cutouts. There's a pocket garden on that side, so that there's some, it's not just right up against that property line.
Okay. All right, are there any more questions about the main house from the board? Everybody okay with that?
Amy,
Yep.
can you clarify what part of the existing house is in the setback?
The,
Yeah, I mean, that's what you showed us.
Yeah.
Doesn't show it very well.
if you look at the existing conditions survey, you can see that the, sorry, I gotta get that. So,
Oh,
this
it's
is,
14.2 instead of 15,
correct.
so there's an 0.8 of a foot adjustment they're making.
Okay.
That's an improvement, correct?
The other question, Amy, if you don't mind,
That's de minimis, so the real improvement, I think, is the flood.
Yeah, I agree. Okay,
Amy, the other question?
Oh, so you have another question, Woody?
The
Keep going.
neighbor's support, do you have anything in writing about
Yeah,
that?
the neighbor support letters are all in the planning and zoning file. We can certainly have them submitted to the zoning board of appeals file.
Okay.
that works for me. That's fine. That's fine. Maybe, maybe to alleviate some staff work.
I could do that.
Can you email, thank you. I've been doing this way too long. Okay, so any other questions on the main house? Great, let's go to the barn.
Okay,
Tell me about that.
all right, so.
Tell us about that.
So the, oops, let me get to the, oh, gosh. All right, so this, sorry. There is an existing 100-year-old barn structure on the northerly property line. As you can see, it's not a large building, but it's a very quaint barn. It's not actually big enough even for a car to fit in it. It's used for storage currently, and the owner intends to continue using it for storage. They do, however, need to do some work on the barn. They would like to put it's on dirt right now, which is causing you can even see it in that photo, the bottom of the building is starting to rot a bit. So they want to put a sort of a cement slab down, do some work on the siding, and in so doing that, also there will be some flood venting added to this building. Because it's not livable space, it doesn't need to be raised as long as there's flood venting through it, and that's been confirmed with the town. So so the question we have for you is, there is no increase in nonconformity proposed. There's no change in use proposed. We have an existing nonconforming structure within the side yard setback. I have had numerous conversations with the staff about whether or not a variance is required for this structure. The assessor's value is about $11,000 for the structure. So basically you like take a hammer to it, you've gone over the 50% rule. So on that basis, what I have been told as far as this application is that because there is a more than a 50% improvement planned, we need a variance in order to keep this structure. However, just a few weeks ago, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved a project at 142 Nearwater. That project had an existing non-conforming, a house that was non-conforming as to setbacks in one corner of the house. The applicant took that building all the way down to the studs and is rebuilding it. For that one corner, they stopped the height of the building so it's not as tall as the rest of the building, so that they could say that they were not increasing the nonconformity within the setback. And the town said, and I could show you the video, but Fred Donite reported to the Planning and Zoning Commission that he had spoken to town council, and town council said because there was no increase in the setback, no increase in the nonconformity, no variance was required. And that application got approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I am asking this board for one of two things. One, I would like an interpretation of, it's section, I believe it's section 382, Woody?
It's 384.
Yeah.
384.
I think so.
Sorry, I thought I had it written down. That says that if there is demolition of a house to greater than 50%, it needs to be brought into conformity. So if we are doing work on a house, does that section mean that we need to get a variance to keep a non-conforming structure? Or is a variance only required if you are in some way increasing the nonconformity? Sorry, just to say, and if you find that a variance is required, of course, the next step is we would like a variance for the structure. But candidly, as an attorney who, this is not my only client, I would really like a very clear interpretation of this section, because getting differing interpretations on differing matters is frustrating.
Understood. Couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
I understand about the concrete slab. I assume that they're gonna be changing the siding to match the house?
No, I believe it's gonna remain red.
Okay.
But there needs to be repairs done to the roof. I mean, it does need a decent amount of
It
work.
needs considerable amount of work.
Are all the
Okay.
repairs to be done related to the condition that it's in, such as rotting wood, or are there other repairs that are going to be done in there besides just call it structural repairs?
Just structural repairs, because it's not a living structure. I think I've actually got some interior photos on the next pages. Yeah, I mean, it's just, literally, it's a wood barn with storage inside.
Not putting electrical or HVAC or
No.
anything else like that?
So there's no issue, your client has no issue with the stipulations that you know I'm gonna come up with?
As far as.
No living area, no
Yes.
bathroom, no kitchen materials or kitchen equipment, blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm gonna
Correct.
do.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I mean, and in fact, if anything like that were to be planned, we wouldn't be able to say that we're just keeping a non-conforming structure, because at that point, we'd have to raise it. It's because it's storage.
Yes, I understand completely what you're saying, but things happen in this town.
We are absolutely 100% fine with the
Good,
stipulations.
okay.
Amy, is that barn historically significant in any way?
It's not plaqued in any sense. It is over 100 years old, and I personally think a very, a nice representation of sort of these small barns that you would see along every property, probably in Darien at one time.
Okay. Other questions from the board, or any questions?
I do.
Yes, please.
So, the word barn does not appear anywhere in our zoning text. Is that barn a legal use, put aside whether it's conforming or not, in a residential district?
Well, it's not, so I'm calling it a barn because that's what it looks at. It is an accessory storage shed.
So-
But although I will say, sorry, we did have it measured, and it does not qualify as an accessory structure because of the height of the building, but it is used as an accessory
So it's an accessory
building.
structure, therefore it's a legal use in the residential district.
Correct.
So the one thing I would say to you, in terms of an interpretation from this board, I mean, I read both the section 384 and 386 today a couple times, and they do appear inconsistent at first. So it might have been helpful, I don't know if you have it, to have those two sections for us to compare, so we can
Right.
talk it through. I have my view on what they stand for and why they're not inconsistent, but it might be
Okay.
helpful if you have those to share with the board.
I have them. Do you want me to read them
I
aloud,
mean,
or?
I don't know what the
or
best way
copy
to
them, or-
communicate is. It's kind of dense to read aloud, and
Right.
so.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, look, candidly, the staff at Town Hall had traditionally found that anytime you took a house down, or, any structure on a lot where you went down, where the value of your improvements was more than 50% of the value of the structure, if it was non-conforming, no matter what you were doing, you had to come in and get a variance. And that is not the way that other towns interpret the non-conforming structures. And like I said, there has been a change, and it has been interpreted differently within Darien. So it's, the idea had always been that the section says that if it's damaged by more than 50%, you have to bring it into conformity. So the question is, what does that mean?
Well, so, I mean, that's section 386, but
Right.
what that says, which is different than 384,
Let me get this.
and most pertinent part is that section refers to if you're not in conformance as to use.
Correct.
Well, 384 is specifically about being not in conformance as to setbacks and other things, but being in conformance as to use.
Correct.
So in my view, what is your thought on why 384 and 386 are different, and why 384 is relevant and 386 is not?
I mean, I think that, I think that 384 is what's relevant, because this is a conforming use. It's simply non-conforming as to setbacks. And I agree with you. I mean, when the town went, I used to argue with Dave Keating about how these regulations should be interpreted frequently. And I do think that the point is that if a non-conforming use in an area, you know, if you've got a restaurant in a residential zone and it burns down, you know, you shouldn't be able to put a new restaurant up. That should be, you know, when we take that time to bring that lot into conformity. But when you've got, what happens with saying that people need to come in for variances when they're trying to repair an existing structure and not change it in any way, is it, you know, frankly, it brings more people into this board, and it really increases the cost. You know, I've had clients in the past that, you know, all they want to do is a roof repair on their garage, and next thing you know, they have to wait 2 months, come in for a variance, and frankly, a lot of people just do it without a permit when you
I mean,
when
it
you
makes
have
sense,
that.
actually. Why don't you read 384? It's relatively short, just so we have it on the record.
Sure. You're talking about. Yeah.
I mean, the most.
So a building that's conforming in use, but does not conform
So
to
just
the,
pause there, conforming in use.
Correct.
But, go ahead.
but does not conform to the height, setback, yard, land coverage, or parking requirements of these regulations, shall not be considered non-conforming within the meaning of subsection 383, which is this section about non-conforming uses. Any and all additions to the building must comply with all current requirements of the zone in which the site is located. No permit shall be issued that results in an increase of any nonconformity in height, setback, yard space, land coverage, or parking without an appropriate variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. No intensification of use, nor increase in the amount of building vertically, horizontally, or otherwise shall be based on the existing non-complying or non-conforming aspects of the structure. So to me, that section says if you are increasing the nonconformity, well, first of all, you shouldn't, but if you are, you have to get a variance for it.
Now, just for 386, don't read the whole thing, but 386 is the section that says if the cost is over 50%, then you have to come get a variance. Just read like
Correct.
the first sentence of that, because I want to draw the distinction there, what it says about, the first one said where conforming as to use, but what does the beginning of 386 say?
So, and this frankly is where I think why an interpretation is needed, because it says if a building or structure legally non-conforming in use or otherwise.
See, legally non-conforming in use.
Right.
Now, the or otherwise. is
Or
like
otherwise.
here, but-
So I think it's the or otherwise that people have hung their hat on, but I don't see that. I think that if they wanted to say, it would have been easier and more clear if the regulations, if they wanted this 50% rule to apply to a non-conforming structure, they would have said non-conforming in use or non-conforming as to setback, height, et cetera, et cetera.
Right now, regardless of what we do about the variance, has the variance been noticed? Has this variance been noticed legally?
Yes.
Oh, it has.
It's an either or in here.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
fine, just,
But isn't there an argument that it doesn't require variance?
Right, if we find
she wants
her
to, Amy would like an
interpretation is right.
interpretation,
I
yes,
understand.
no, I get it. I just wanted to make sure that legally we could do that. Okay, fine.
So I guess I would just say, it is my position that a variance should not be required.
I understand.
And I think that's in keeping with what interpretations have been done recently on other properties in town. However, I just, to make the record, you know, we have a historic structure that we are attempting to rehabilitate and retain, and it would be a hardship to have to move it. It probably wouldn't frankly survive the move if we were to try to do that.
Okay. Other questions from the board about the barn, storage facility? Questions? Woody?
Pardon me.
No, your pardon.
If we could clarify, what parts of, two things. I think you said there would be no electrical features in the barn, right?
Oh,
Is there-
maybe there's a light.
Yeah, there are light fixtures in there.
There's power in the barn now. It powers that outside light, and it also powers a dog security fence. And there's a light with a light bulb inside the barn.
Understood.
So we would expect to retain power in the barn.
Understood, thank you.
But not expanded to have more lights, like outside?
Correct.
Okay. And the other part of this is, just what parts of this barn are gonna be preserved? Apparently, there's no foundation truly, right? So what's gonna be lifted and then?
No, we're not
slammed?
adding a foundation. It's what was referred to by the architect as a rat slab, but it's a cement slab to protect the bottom of the building. But perhaps Mark can give a little more.
Yes, we've had the barn inspected by our architect. I believe he has a letter on file with the town when we applied for the building permit. And we've had it looked at by a barn specialist. And if you go to the picture, you'll see it's a heavy timber construction, which is why it's lasted relatively level for 100 years, as it was a heavy timber construction. And we will be adding some bracing to the eave line as well. And we are told by engineers that it is structurally sound once it is braced and watertight again.
And I think, and Mark raises an important point that I didn't mention previously, which was that when he first approached the town to find out what he could do to repair this barn, he decided he was going to try to do that while the rest of these applications were pending, and was told initially by staff that he could just go ahead and apply for a building permit. So all of the building permit, so everything that is planned for the barn has been fully documented, is in file in town hall, and if it would be of help, I can upload all of that into the ZBA file as well, but there's a building permit currently open.
Is it signed by the building department?
When it went for signatures was when in the zoning office, they said, well, this is non-conforming, you need to go get a variance.
I understand,
But
okay.
but he was initially told, no, you don't need a variance, go ahead and apply for your building permit.
All right, I'm not gonna ask who told him that. But I understand. Okay. Any other questions, Woody?
No, thank you.
No. Any other further comment?
I think.
Because the board looks pretty good right now, so, but as you know, I believe Mr. Maslin is gonna come up and have his say. And of course, obviously, you'll have the ability or the opportunity to come back and rebut, if you will.
And I think on that point, I think most of the rest that I have to say has to do with what Attorney Maslin is going to say, so maybe I'll let him speak first.
Not a surprise. Thanks very much. Amy.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Mr. Maslin, how are you tonight? I'll take that as a good.
Good, thank you. And you?
I'm equally as well, thank you.
Good, I think this fits. Okay. And I gotta plug this in. See how this works from the beginning. Oh, look at that. Works.
Bingo.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Robert Maslin, I'm an attorney here in Darien, as most of you know, and I represent Robert and Rita Gadsden, who are the owners of 116 5 Mile River Road. They couldn't be here tonight because Mr. Gadsden has a medical issue that he's been dealing with for quite a while now, and he's restricted from basically mixing with other people. It's one of those, he's
That's fine.
vulnerable.
That's not a problem.
And so they're out of town, kind of
Yep, I get
isolated
it.
somewhere. Before I get started, I just want to make some comments on the barn. I'll make it easy for you. If you want to grant the variance for the barn, grant the variance and leave the discrepancy in the regulations up to the Planning and Zoning Commission to straighten out. For 25 years, I have been dealing with situations where people want to do 50% of work to a building, whether it's an addition or maintenance work or something in between or some combination. Once you hit 50%, you're into ZBA, and it's been that way for 25 years. This seems to be a brand-new interpretation. And there's another section.
So,
might have been
may I
mentioned,
ask,
but
before we
not-
continue to dwell on the barn, are you saying that you're not here to I mean,
I'm not
clearly
here
you're
to
here.
complain about the barn.
Fine, let's move on.
Okay, I
Yep.
just mentioned 386
Understood.
deals with damages to buildings in 50%, and I think that should get triggered here.
Understood
But grant
completely,
that
but if
variance
if
anyway.
you
I'm-
and your
I'm fine
client are
with
okay
that.
with the barn, let's
Yes.
move on with what they're not okay with, so I
Okay.
can address.
All right, so I've got a PowerPoint. I've annotated some of the things that are in the record, so there's really nothing in terms of underlying information that's new. This is an aerial off the town's GIS map. You can see, I've pointed out the two properties. That pond and wetland or marsh or meadow or whatever is back here. It's that kind of brownish area, in case you're wondering. The Gadsdens obviously are to the south, and you can see the alignment of the buildings here. To kind of give you an idea of what the street looks like, this is a photograph looking south. 114 is in the foreground with the real estate sign, and this is in the opposite direction. 116 is here, 114 is back here, and then the rest. And this picture's taken about where the road turns private. Okay, summary of concerns. Overall size and scale of the development's too large. The building is too far forward. I'll get into the zoning reasons why it's too far forward, but the bottom line on that is it increases the existing nonconformity. And whenever someone has come into Zoning Board of Appeals with a variance where the proposal would increase a nonconformity, most of the time you said no.
You're talking about the size of the building going from 37?
No, the
to
location of
4,000?
it, the location of it on the lot. Because right now, it's in a portion of the lot that is roughly 90 feet, or maybe 91 feet, depending on where you measure it from, wide. If you come forward to 89, where you're 85, now you're getting into a more narrow, more non-conforming part of the lot. And it's an increase in, it's an easy fix. Move it back to where the front wall is on the existing building. That seems to me to be the easiest fix.
May I ask a question before you go on? Because, you know, we're already 50 minutes into this thing. Can you just tell me what the real issue is with the Gadsdens, if I'm pronouncing that correct? What's the real issue? Is it blocking their view, or are they,
Well,
what
the
are they
front-
upset about?
All the raised terraces. It's blocking the view that they have looking up the street from the front of their house, because the house is forward a bit. But now you have substantial fill in these multi-layer terraces in the front yard that they don't have on their lot. You don't see it on the other lots in the neighborhood. That's the front.
So this is a view issue of the view up 5 Mile River Road,
Well,
not
it's
having
a-
anything to do with Long Island Sound or 5 Mile River.
It's a filling issue as well, and part of it is non-conforming, and I'll just get to that in a second.
Have your client, well, I'll say that, have your clients had any conversations whatsoever with the Cohens to discuss this?
They've exchanged some emails.
That's it?
I don't know if they had actual conversations or not.
Okay.
Is the Gadsden's property raised, or is it at the, is it FEMA
It's at,
compliant?
it's at the original grade.
Okay.
You know, it's been there probably as long as the other houses on the lot. So this is what I'm talking about on the location on the lot. This line that's on the survey that's in the file runs up to the corner of the main wall of the front of the house. There's no dimension called out for that. The second line that's a little bit to the east shows the lot width where the front corner of that covered porch or covered deck is located, and that's 90 feet. So in order to move forward, Woody calculated or scaled it, it's about 14 feet forward of where the existing house is. And whether you call it a setback or a location based on the lot width, it should not be forward of the existing house. It's,
Why? It's still within the
because,
setback. The
no,
only
it's not.
variance- Look,
There's a combination. Setback is one thing, but location relative to the lot width is another. And the regulation says you can't build a replacement house on a portion of the lot that is less than the minimum width, which is 100 feet here. In this case, there's an existing house at 89 to the covered deck. That's where the corner should be on the proposed house. It's a 14-foot shift. Move back there, and it eliminates that issue. So you don't need the lot width variance anymore. Okay, so do you need the variance? Is it the minimum adjustment? No, it's not. Move it back, and you don't need that variance. The other issue here on some of these zoning things is, well, let's see. This is the proposed house, and this shows the 89 feet, and then this lot width is not called out. Someone asked before about the 100-foot point, and I believe it's right back here, behind the proposed terrace in the back. Okay. Next issue, we're a little excessive here, or a lot excessive. I have notations here, but the front corner of this filling is closer than 15 feet to the property boundary. That's a violation of the zoning regulations that say, unless the Planning and Zoning Commission can find no impact to the adjoining property, and here there's a visual impact, big visual impact, and you're talking several feet of height to the proposed retaining walls on top of fill to get to the bottom of the wall measurements. So we're talking quite a bit of increase. For example, the retaining wall here, according to the numbers on the plan, is 9 feet above the existing and proposed grade. Over here, the middle one, 5 feet from the existing grade and 3 to 4 feet from the proposed grade. So there's filling going on, and then you have a retaining wall on top of it. This corner is within 15 feet.
Wouldn't the applicant have to go to P and Z for landfill site?
There was a time when they had to come in, people had to come in and get variances for that, but
That's a planning and zoning issue.
Well, it is.
They do site plan fill thing all the time. Read their agendas. It's on there every week.
Sure.
So isn't that a P and Z
But-
issue about that?
It is, but when you couple it with what's going on with the rest of the property, this is a nonconformity, and my view is you can't grant a variance for one thing when there's another nonconformity that's not being addressed. So you have that one here, and you have even more back here. This is a 6.5-foot retaining wall. That also violates the 15-foot separation. And this is feet away from the Gadsden's property. Their house is outlined in this crosshatched area, and you have, this whole area is getting filled. The area along the boundary is being regraded, and we have issues with the way that's being regraded because it appears that the slope is, or the contours are being tilted a little bit too far toward the neighboring properties. These are the terrace elevations. The rear terrace is 14 feet high, elevation 14, which is roughly feet above the existing grade. There's no reason for that. That can be dropped down to the existing grade or close to it.
Okay,
In
but
the
now
front,
you're
you
in the
have
rear of the
multiple
house. Do they have
steps.
a problem with the view issue in the rear of the house as well as in the front, so they can't look down the street?
You have a 6-foot higher, 6-foot increase in the grade, 10 feet from the property line. That's just for the retaining wall, that's a major impact. And,
I don't know, the Gadstons are the ones that are 3 feet from the property line.
well,
I'm having a
that's,
hard time
I mean,
with
that's the neighborhood. That house was built years ago when it was,
I
when
think,
it
I mean,
was
these people are
okay.
trying to raise this thing to make it FEMA compliant. They've stepped it back.
They didn't step it back. They stepped it forward. That's the primary issue here. You don't need the 89-foot variance. Take it back to where the existing front wall is and
All right.
drop the grades.
I understand. Can you get to any other salient points that may be important in the board's deliberation?
Sure, Mr.
Because I'd like to hear from the
Sure.
redness from the meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Gadsden took a picture kind of off the back of the property here and then put in the yellow, I guess, lines to give you a sense of what this grade increase is going to look like. It's not the house, it's not necessary, and it should be brought down a
Is this
grade.
picture
The
taken
other
from
thing-
his property?
Sorry?
Is this picture taken from his property?
No, it's off the
This is
back.
just in their,
He's-
this is in their backyard, right?
Well, it's at an angle off, because they are pretty close. I'll go
Well,
back to that.
To Barb's point,
From here,
they are pretty close.
They are
It's 5
close.
Mile River Road.
Understood.
You know I built a house there years ago. I mean,
I didn't know that.
Oh, I'm surprised.
And I understand the need to bring houses into FEMA compliance,
Mhm.
but there's no need to have these terraces this high.
That's just a design issue.
Well, sure, but it's an impact as well. And one of the issues that you can address, or they can address, let me just see if I can jump right to it, is if they move it back, where's the grading? Just a second. Okay, here we go. If they drop this down, you eliminate this slope back here. You can move the terrace back without having the slope encroach into the upland review area.
So let me ask this
So
question.
it's possible to shift the whole thing back.
That's what I want to ask Amy.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll get to the redness in me guy soon enough. Okay, here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
If you're saying you'd like it moved back 14 feet, I believe that was the number, correct?
Well, that's Woody's number based on.
Okay, fine. So if they move it back 14 feet, you still have a problem with the grading and the landfill?
Drop the grades,
So you want both things? You want them to move
Yeah.
the house back and drop it down?
yes. Which is not unreasonable. I don't think there's anybody in this neighborhood that's got this extensive amount of grading. You're talking 4 or 5 feet in some places.
I
But it's
understand.
kind
know,
of like what's going on in the Bay. Like the people that are addressing their homes and raising them, the people next door look like ridiculous, but it's just
Until
kind
they
of
do
the.
the-
Yeah, but
So
over
they do the
time,
same
over
thing.
time, they do the same thing. They raise their house and
Because if
they
the
comply
Gadsens
with-
came in and said they wanted to raise, I mean, we'd
Sure,
encourage that.
yeah, of course.
Maybe maybe that's.
Well, they'd have their share of problems with a 50-foot lot.
That's right, that's right.
Well, I mean, they're completely hardship because, I mean, that's just the way this was, and the zoning regulations make this difficult for everybody who's got non-conforming situation.
Yep.
And FEMA makes it worse.
I understand. And I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm probably going to, because unless there's anything else you can, and I'm gonna give you the opportunity to come back, just like Amy, okay? But I really want to hear some answers to my questions. Have the neighbors spoken in person? Enough of the emails.
I don't
I'd like to know
She
from
could answer that.
Mr. Red, I don't remember the redness of me, that guy's name, but how, Roger? Okay. Patrick. Okay, so I want to hear from him, because can it be moved back 14 feet and it does not impact the wetlands? It doesn't come within any regulated area?
Right.
Is that the case? We don't know.
I believe it
I'd
is.
like-
I mean, they can answer directly.
Yeah, no, I'd like to hear from them, and
You know,
I'll give you
you
the
drop-
opportunity.
It seems to me you drop it down
Yep.
and you don't need that slope, and you can bring the terrace right back to the end of the upland review area.
Perfect.
The other point that I'd like you to consider is their plan has, and let me just go back to the slide. Their plan has, I think you mentioned before, it's busy in the back. So you have generator this is a shower and equipment room and a cabana over here. Why not combine them all into one building and put it over here where it doesn't bother anybody?
Okay.
That's entirely doable.
All right, so,
And we don't know what the height is of these buildings. There's no calculation, so other than kind of a conclusory statement on one of the architecturals about the average grade, but there's a ton of fill going in here, well, more than a ton. There's a significant amount of fill that is going to have an impact on the average grade calculation.
okay.
And that we need to see in order to properly evaluate this. So really, that's,
Okay, I'm not too sure that you need to see that in particular, because they're not required, they're not asking for any variances with regard to those structures.
Right.
And all the structures, you would agree with me that all the structures are within the setback and they're conforming, there's no issue.
within the side yards.
It's
We
a matter of
still
right,
have-
is it not? It's
What
a
is-
matter of right to have these, you called it busy. It's their right to do that, is it not? They're not asking for anything.
Well, they need a variance for the building. Because
So you're
no matter
taking
what
the
you do here,
opportunity to, okay, so now you've
You know.
come up with three things, correct? I just want to make sure that we're on it. So it's the grade, it's the house too forward, and you think the back is too busy. Is that correct?
Well-
Three things?
there's a way to arrange the, yes. And
Okay.
these structures, they have to be higher, but they can go behind the garage with the cabana, make the cabana bigger, include the equipment in that, and done. And it doesn't bother anybody back there.
Okay. We'll deliberate
You see,
that.
I mean, that's a reasonable request.
Yep, understood.
You know.
I get it. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to come back
Okay.
and add whatever you want to add.
Okay.
But right now, I really want to hear, frankly, from all, the entire party over here.
Can I just
Yeah.
ask one quick question?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
How many square feet is your client's house? Do you know?
I don't know.
So thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
You stay right there. You don't need to unplug.
Well-
You're fine. You're
Might
fine.
take a second, I don't know if she's.
So, Amy, could Mr. Cohen or Mrs. come up here and tell me if they answer my question about conversations with the neighbor? Because, look, this board is really interested in having neighbor-friendly neighborhoods. All right, we don't want any animosity. We seem to be dealing with this quite a bit lately. And we always ask, please try and get together and work something out. If something always can be worked out. And you know what? More times than not, they do it in the hallway after we're done. So, I don't know what he's pulling out, but I just wanted
Making
to.
sure that we had a site plan. that I
Okay.
could point to.
So have you had any conversations with your neighbor and
Yes.
understood their concerns and maybe addressed this with at all?
We've known Bob and Rita for probably more than 20 years. We used to live nearby when our kids were little,
Mhm.
before we lived in the house that we live in now. And we're actually moving back to 5 Mile if we build this house. And so we have known them. We met with them 2 or 3 times in person on the street holding site plans.
Mhm.
We actually met with them first before we had all of the site plan in place. Then we
Mhm.
met with them again. And they did mention some of the concerns that they had. And in fact, we made some changes over time that you can't see here because this is the finished plan.
Mhm.
We made some changes over time, including the fact that this retaining wall here in the front yard used to come closer and come around here so that you could walk from the front patio to the back patio. We've eliminated that.
Mhm.
We also had this street front retaining wall used to round the corner and be right on the property line. And I asked the engineers if we could eliminate any wall on the property line here if we tapered the lawn. We then lowered this upper terrace and then created this intermediary terrace in order to have steps. So if you have one wall that has a 6-foot face, right? We didn't make up FEMA. FEMA says you have to go to 15. So if my grade is 9, that gives you a 6-foot face. So what we did whenever we had those types of grades is we broke it in 2. We'd have 3 and then 3, and then we created a bed in front of that for landscaping. And so we were working all around this sideboard. They said that they wanted to maintain this arborvitae hedge here. We had initially had another raised garden right up against the property line here with a bed there that we were going to put a tree in. Because again, their house is right here, so we were looking to screen the second story of their house. We eliminated that here. So all of the things that we did around here were sensitive to some of the concerns that were raised by the Gadsens. We didn't get all the way to yes, but we left the changes in because we think that they were the right answers here. So we did have conversations, and we tried.
Mm-hmm.
And-
Okay.
And if I can just add to that, I was brought on to this a while into the project, and at that point, we understood that Attorney Maslin was representing the Gadsdens, and I reached out to him numerous times. We did finally get some comments back from him yesterday. But we really, I will say, we did try
Okay.
to work with them, and as I explained, I think that the project was sort of very sensitively designed to try to take into account that their house is so
Understood.
close to the property
Did you
line.
have a question for me?
Yeah, can you move it back 15 feet?
So
What's the issue
so-
with that? Can it go back?
So the answer
14
is.
feet.
14 feet,
It's
sorry.
a 14 feet.
So I guess the answer is no
No.
for a couple of reasons, but I want to start with, what we're asking for. So the current house is in a portion of the lot that is 90 feet wide. We're proposing to build the new house in a portion of the lot that at its narrowest point is 89 feet wide. So it's not as if we're trying to squeeze it into this very, much more narrow part of the lot. If we move it back to the 100-foot line, and Patrick can come back up here and discuss that, we're in the upland review area very quickly. So
So 14 feet back does put you into the regulated area.
it
of
doesn't,
nature.
it doesn't put us all the way into the regulated area, but the problem is that like I said, we have a pond. The pond, Mr. Cohen has diligently been working to remove the invasive species from in connection with the
23 feet, they
EPC
could
staff.
push it back.
We have the upland review area, we have a meadow that has been built. So, yes, once we move back, we start to encroach into the upland review area.
Amy, on this survey, it shows there's 23 feet that you can play with. Is that not accurate? So on this plan, it looks like there's still 23 spare feet to the upland review area.
And yes, there is, and I can have Mark speak to this or Patrick, but yes, I'm not saying that we're immediately in the upland review area, but what I am saying is that we are going to need a variance to build this house, because the lot width, if we build it in where it's 100 feet, we don't have enough room for the house.
So either way, you need a variance.
We need a
But
variance.
you could potentially push it back and accommodate the neighbors more fully. I understand you've already made, and I think you've made lovely accommodations.
Right.
I really do.
Right.
That's the question.
Right,
That's what we're trying
and
to
I guess
decide.
that's the, and just let me, I think the question is that, what is the purpose of pushing it back further on the lot? We want to keep the look of the meadow, we want to keep the view towards the pond and the back of the house. We are in a non-conforming location, whether we move it a few feet or not.
It kind of increases the mass on the front because you're going up.
Mm-hmm.
So I get what they're saying, like, why can't you just push it back a bit since you're increasing that mass?
The problem is that you have to realize that this is the first house in that line
To
of
do that.
houses that's had to get up above the female elevation. All the other houses are below it. So I can, it's going to happen all along this road, that all of these houses ultimately
Just
are
like in the
part-
bay, you drive along, you're like,
Correct.
whoa! I mean,
They're
you're-
all
yeah.
gonna have to go up.
Right, I get it.
So I think that, again, if we could, obviously, if we could get the house into the 100-foot width area and be, and be fully conforming, we would, because then we
I'm
wouldn't
just
have
not
to
sure
be
you
here.
can't. I mean, you'd have to go in front of the EPA, right, to get into the, is that the issue? It's
Well-
more approvals, it's more steps?
I think the EPC, and we've,
EPC.
again, the variance has already been granted because of this hardship. The EPC, if you can avoid building in the upland review area, they want to see you avoid that. We can. And it's not as if where we're building the house is all that different from where it is now. It's
It's a foot
890
difference.
versus 89.
Well, wait a minute, wait a
All
minute.
of this, hang on, one second, you're next. All of this grading and fill is all due to FEMA regulation.
Correct.
So you're gonna have to put in that fill and the 1 ton plus of dirt regardless, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Woody?
Yeah, the fundamental question is, why does the house have to go 14 foot closer to 5 Mile River Road, which is objected to by the neighbors. Why not, as it's been suggested, yes, you still need a lot width issue, and yes, P&Z Commission needs to see all the fill and regrading, but why not solve the problem? You have room in the back to do it.
Well, the other issue that we have is we are trying to, again, we're trying to maintain this 100-year-old barn. And that's off of the parking court where the garage is. Like I said, that barn is not big enough to accommodate a car, so we have a garage. In order to do a 3-point turn out of the garage, if we can't make that turn if we go back any further.
That's the
But
problem.
you could move the barn back.
No,
as well.
you start
The
moving that
barn,
barn.
then
it
that
falls
barn will
apart.
fall apart. I mean, that's why we've asked for the variance for the barn location.
Well, the house could be shortened or something. It's
Or the
an
decking could be,
elaborate design. It seems like there's flexibility there.
Could you put the garage anywhere else? I mean, it'd be a dramatic turn, okay.
So this is, okay, well, that's deliberate with myself, never mind. Okay.
Yeah, and I do.
Does the board have any other questions for the applicant? Okay, I think that's a no. Woody, are you okay? So far? I'm not
Okay.
done yet, okay? You're good, I'll give you the opportunity to come back if we need you, okay?
Okay.
Bob?
Sure. Just a couple of points.
Mm-hmm.
The background on this, I think, is important to know. This was planned without a view toward getting a variance. The applicants filed a P&Z application under CAM and filling, and then found out they had a problem with the lot width. So this was designed first, and then they realized they needed variances. If it were the other way around, they could have designed this at the existing location of the front of the house, and then worked backward from there and made it work. But what they're trying to do is get a variance to do something that they designed without knowing they needed a variance. And ordinarily, if you know you need a variance, you do what you can to avoid it, or avoid as many variances as you can. That's why this plan is the way it is. They
But you
don't
would
need all
agree
the
there's
filling.
no realistic way to avoid a variance here.
No, that's correct, I agree.
Okay.
But variances should not be granted when they increase nonconformities. Variances should be granted when you either don't change the nonconformity, which is the lot width, or you reduce the nonconformity. And case law of late, in flood zone replacement structure cases, has said it's okay to rebuild in a setback that's less nonconforming but not completely conforming. But the case law does not support, or at least I haven't seen any, that supports making a nonconforming situation
We could
worse.
just do it as a straight variance without any indication that we're doing this as a reduction of nonconformance, right?
Well, that's one of the reasons why this is being rebuilt is to eliminate the nonconformity.
Well, that's one of, I mean, we can either find the hardship, straight variance, or in the alternative, if we don't find the hardship in the straight variance, we can say, oh, well, they're reducing the nonconformity, so that's a basis to do it anyway. Here, I think they're saying we have both.
Well, you certainly have the reduction in nonconformity in terms of FEMA,
Right.
but you don't have it for anything else.
Well, you have a minor reduction in the setback, but you're right, you have an
I mean,
increase in
Yeah,
nonconformance. in
what
the
did Woody
location.
say? It's 0.8
Yeah, I
feet
said
or
it's
something? I
minor,
mean,
but
it's
yeah.
hardly anything. That's probably a surveyor's discrepancy, but that's really it.
Okay, so the house as designed now appears to be in pretty good alignment with the other houses on the street. The street does bow a little bit, but it looks like it's pretty well in line, which we like to see. Now you push it back, sorry, I was about to say back 14 feet. Now, okay, so 10 years, okay, so back 14 feet. 10 years goes by, and they're 114, so that'd be 112. Now 112 wants to be taken down. They have to adhere to FEMA rules, and they're gonna regrade. Are your neighbors, your clients gonna say the same thing? Because the next house down has to do it? I mean, we've approved grading in the Bay dozens of times. And if you're, I mean, if you're below what FEMA is now requiring, well,
But you don't need the amount of grading that's proposed here.
I think they do, Bob. I think
that's
they're
not what
being-
I'm hearing.
I think they're being punished for being the first ones to raise their home to FEMA compliance. I understand your neighbors don't like it, but I
agree.
think that's the only issue with it. I'm hearing you loud and clear, and if they could move it back without issue, I'd say that's a great accommodation, but I see them making a lot of accommodations.
Well, they came in with a plan first that they
That's
didn't
okay
think
with
they
me.
need a variance.
That's okay
for.
with me, because they're gonna need a variance anyway. They were gonna need a variance on this lot no matter what they did.
yeah, I don't,
Right,
But I get your point.
yeah, we
but
understand.
it's an important point.
We scrap
because-
plans all the time because we say to people, well, wait a minute, you could have built this
Yeah.
thing somewhere else. I'm not sure they could have done that. They're not making a gross house here. They're making a 300 square foot addition to the house. And I think they were really responsible with the layering of it and the landscaping. I am not seeing this as a big problem for this neighbor. I'm seeing the Gadstones as being like completely on top of them. They are the ones that are 3 feet from the setback. So,
I think the guys should be more,
That's
more
I'm
upset
hearing
at the
you.
FEMA regulation
Right.
than they should be
Well, I
at their
understand.
neighbor. The neighbor's only trying to comply, which they're gonna have to because they can't get insurance.
FEMA doesn't require the amount of filling.
It does not?
No, it does not. It's a personal preference that they want the higher terrace, probably at close to the first floor level of the house. They don't have to go up and down stairs.
what about the point to their tiering?
That's a personal
3 feet
preference.
and 6 feet.
Pardon?
He talked about tiering it. There's a 3
In the
feet
front.
tier and then a 6.
Yeah. But it doesn't have to run the entire width of the front of the house.
But it sounds like their main beef is with the front of the house.
It's
That's
both.
where
It's really both.
Okay.
It's really both,
Well,
because
they have three,
They have 3 beefs.
but we're trying to address.
front,
the-
back, and, what was the other one?
I forget now, to tell you the truth, but I know I
The
counted
accessory
three.
buildings,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
do something to make those less
Yeah.
intrusive. And
Okay.
that, I mean, that's,
All right.
that's.
So, do I have questions from the board at all? No, okay. Woody? Okay. I think we get it. I think we do. Unless you have you or Amy has anything
I
other
don't.
to add that we haven't heard already, then I think we're good.
I'm just going to be very quick.
Yes.
So I think the board has already made the point for me, but, you know, the fill is a P&Z issue and will be discussed in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have shown no negative impact on the neighbors, and I'm sure it will be thoroughly discussed, but that is within their jurisdiction.
I'm sure it will, because I would
Yeah.
imagine that Mr. Masson will be in attendance at that meeting as well.
Would expect so.
Yeah, so
And I also just want to.
I wish everybody all the best with P&Z.
And I did just want to correct one thing, because there seemed to have been some statements that this back terrace didn't need to be elevated above FEMA, and it does. The pool equipment, the cabana, all of those things do need to be elevated above FEMA as well. So we are not proposing an excessive amount of fill. We're trying to get the house above the flood elevation, and we are trying to terrace it so that it is not this huge monolithic structure that just goes straight up.
I think we get that, and
Yep.
I think it's appreciated by the board. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, I'm good. And just because I have to, is there anybody else in the audience that would like to be heard? Patrick? Okay, so is everybody good? Everybody all right? Okay, then this application is closed. Okay, I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. John?
You're going to deliberation, I guess.
Yeah, oh, what, did I do
The
something?
hearing is
Closed.
closed.
I said closed.
We said
Good,
closed.
okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I was interrupted.
No, that's okay. But I believe I did say this application is closed.
And there's nothing else on the agenda.
No, so we're going
So we're
into
going to
deliberation. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, look, I tend to like the fact that they're not butting right up against the review line. I like that they tiered the front. The barn, well, I won't even go there yet, but you know, all these houses are all over each other. They're all right on top of
It's
each other.
5 Mile
This
River
is
Road.
gonna be the same thing as what you see in Noroland Bay. And then the next one will go up, and then the next one will go up,
Yeah.
and, you know. I guess the only thing that, you know, troubles me is that how do we make sure that by the time we get to the 10th one isn't right on the setback line in the front yard, right? Like, I don't think this is egregious. I think that, you know, it's a pretty, and especially when you compare the line of where all the houses are, and the aerial view, I think I'm generally okay with it.
Okay. And I know that my good friend Kevin is going to address the hardships and the minimum adjustment necessary, of course. And so we'll get there. So he'll handle that. Matt?
Yeah, similar sentiments. I had a different take on the aerial view. I mean, if you look at where it is right now, it all looks very reasonable, but when you do move it forward 14 feet, it does seem like it actually kind of would be out of place. I'm a little surprised that they wouldn't want to have the house set back further from the road. I mean, then you don't have to have as many privacy trees, and you don't have your window shades down, and it's more private to have your house set back. So I still don't, I mean, I get that the barn will fall apart, but I don't know how you can lift it up and put a slab underneath it, but you can't also move it backwards 14 feet. And I mean, to do all this, you know, for a barn, it's kind of a accessory structure. It seems a little. I mean, if this were my house and I was designing it, I would have moved it back 14 feet, just aesthetically alone, especially when you have 23 feet.
And eliminate the barn?
And get rid of the barn and, or put a new barn, or move the barn. I mean, so I'm a little confused on that. But at the same time, they're not putting in a monstrosity, as Barb said. It's going from 3,700 feet to 4,000 feet. Still three bedrooms. You know, I'm sympathetic to the grade issue, but obviously that's nothing that anybody can deal with or do anything about. So I'm kind of undecided at this point.
Okay, fair enough.
I would just add one other thing. I
Please.
think this is Woody's markup, is that the neighbors to the south are about 78 feet from the road, and this proposal is 74 feet from the road. So it's, you know,
Within spade distance.
pretty in line with each other.
Yeah, I can clarify that a little bit, just so you know. It's hard when you're taking that aerial photo image
Yeah,
to get anything accurate.
I got it. It's some
Submitted
sort of, it's a
survey.
scale and.
Submitted
yeah.
survey was the only thing that we could really say.
The road
Okay,
does
it's
slant
actually
off to the right.
Right.
On the
Yeah,
upper
it
one
does.
a
Which is
bit.
probably not helping,
Yeah, but
I tried to help you out, but I'm not sure how much it was, you know.
I thought it was a very good job. Okay. Sir, Kevin?
Sure, so I mean, I guess we'll have a separate conversation about just the barn, right? This is just on the main structure for now?
Yeah, I think that's how we handled the
Okay,
application, so
okay.
that's
So,
okay.
yeah, of course. So on the main structure, I mean, there's clear evidence on the record that there's something unique about this property, most specifically that there's only a 20-foot wide area where they could build and be in conformance. And that clearly has created a hardship because you can't build any livable property in something that's 20 feet wide. So I think they've clearly met the burden there. So the only real principal question then is this a minimum adjustment necessary? And Matt raises a good point about 14 feet and why couldn't they push it back? And John makes a good point about, well, it's still within a few feet of what the neighbors are at. And my view on this stuff is, like, as this board, I don't think we should be micromanaging that stuff. I think we make a general assessment about whether it's reasonable and minimal enough, then that's generally good enough for me. I'm not going to micromanage the architectural features or any of that. And it seems to me that going a 4,000 square foot house, that's a 300-foot increase from what's there now, seems minimal and reasonable enough. Still just 3 bedrooms on the second floor with an office and then this yoga room. Doesn't seem unreasonable. And then when you add on to that, which is sort of icing on the cake, which we can make an independent determination that this should be granted a variance absent a hardship, that we're coming into compliance, which the town really wants to encourage with FEMA and flood issues given all those things together, I think we should be supportive of this application.
Okay, thank you. Barb? I think we know, Barb. I'm kidding.
I have so much to say. No,
I
it's
know.
great.
I'm
Okay,
just
I love the barn. I think it's the tail wagging the dog a bit.
Wait, we're not onto the
Okay,
barn
but I
yet.
know,
Let's-
but here's why it's relevant here.
Oh, okay.
So if you were gonna tear down that barn, you can ship this thing back and it's not an issue. I love the barn. I wanna talk about that barn. I am a proponent of keeping that barn. I think we
So
want to
you're
encourage
okay
that.
over here with the house?
So, because I like the
Then
house.
I'll
Okay, here's
move to
what-
the barn
okay, all right,
now,
all right,
and
okay.
you can go first.
Okay, all right. So, I don't have an issue with all these outbuildings. I think these people, I'll say with my notes. Could you move it back? Yes, but I'm okay with this. I think they've made the minimal adjustment. I really do. I think they've made the minimal adjustment. I think they are the first, as I've said, to just go up and be FEMA compliant. So I'm okay with all that. I'm really disappointed on the record about the neighbors. I think they have made a lot of accommodations here, and it doesn't sound like it's enough to satisfy the neighbors. I'm not sure what the big beef is here, but I like what they've done with the design. So you can go on to the barn now.
Okay. Kevin, I'm onto the barn.
Well, so I mean, I don't know how you guys want to handle it. I know my view, we can handle the barn in one of two ways. Number one is we can do the analysis we just did about whether there's something unique about the property, whether there's a hardship, and whether this is the minimum adjustment necessary and give them a variance. Or we can instead make an interpretation of our own statute and what it means, and determine that what it actually says is that if you have a non-conforming structure as to setback, et cetera, but not use, if it's non-conforming as to use, that's a different story, but it is non-conforming as to anything other than use, and all they're doing is repairing, rebuilding, but not in any way increasing that non-conformance, that they don't need a variance. And I do think that's the only way to read those two sections in harmony, is that if it's for a use, then you need to come to us. If it's not for a use variance, it's just rebuilding a non-conforming structure that is conforming as to use, then it should be fine. And from a public policy perspective, I think that makes sense, right? If we grant a variance to somebody on January 1st, and something happens on their property, and February 1st they want to repair and rebuild it, and they're doing the identical thing, why do they have to come back to us again when we've granted it? Or in the different scenario where it's what we see more typically, their house predated zoning, it's a structure that predated zoning, it's conforming as to use, and they're repairing it, rebuilding it, but they're not expanding the nonconformance in any way. I'm not sure why that has to come to us. So my view is we should interpret the statute as saying that they don't need a variance, but I don't feel strongly if you guys would rather do the analysis as to the variance instead.
I fully agree. I mean, I think our incentives, we should be providing incentives for people to maintain and repair
Agree.
their property in all cases. And the alternative is that they don't repair the barn. The barn continues to rot and continues to weather. So it doesn't make sense that we wouldn't encourage people to do that. And I mean, theoretically, if somebody wanted to stay underneath the 50%, they could apply to have this barn, sanded down and then apply again to have it painted. Like it's kind of silly what we're doing here with the 50% rule. And if it's for a conforming use. So I completely agree. I agree with what Amy was saying too, that we should not be discouraging people from making these repairs and forcing them to get variances and having them do roof repairs, unpermitted. So.
John?
So Kevin, what you're saying is as long as the use isn't changing, then we should have no.
And the use is legal in the district it's in. Right, so imagine instead of it being an accessory barn, it is.
But is it legal though?
Yeah.
This.
Well, is what legal?
This barn.
As of today, yes, it's legal, but it's non-conforming. It's non-conforming as to its setback, not as to its use.
And heights and a variety of other items.
I think its height is probably fine, but the main thing is the setback is non-conforming, but it's legal. So what we're saying is, as a board, that our interpretation of this section 384, 384, is so long as you're conforming and legal as to use, and you want to rebuild your structure, and you're not expanding your nonconformance, then you don't need a variance.
If they were putting in an apartment,
Yeah,
then they
no,
could be
no,
allowed
that
now.
changes, that changes.
Yeah,
use.
that,
I agree,
that's
yeah.
Yeah, I.
that's
I
a whole
can-
nother
I-
ball
I-
game.
I can agree. with
Yeah,
that,
no, they're keeping the use the same, and
I don't think they need a variance as well to do what they're
Are you
doing.
saying that the 50% should not?
It applies, in my estimation, when there is a non-conforming use. That's what 386 says. Section 386 says, if you're non-conforming as to use or some other matter, then the 50% test applies.
And again, this is for repairs, maintenance, not creating new structure,
Yeah,
not
they're
creating.
shoring up an existing structure, yes,
essentially.
I like it.
So if you're
Okay.
comfortable with that, would you want to stipulate anything about barn, like?
Yes, I'm getting
other
there.
stuff?
Yeah. No, I was just there, or just about to be there. And so we're gonna stipulate what we normally will, so, or normally do. So, and anybody can add
But just
whatever
pause
they
for a
want,
second.
but sure.
I'm not sure stipulations work if what we're doing is saying you don't need a variance. Right? Stipulations work if we say you need a variance, we're gonna give you a variance,
Oh,
but,
I guess we're not gonna
That's the thing.
variance it.
yeah, if you want a variance.
I
then
think you're
you
thinking
want
a
them.
stipulation
How
being.
do you make
don't
sure
look
the
at
use doesn't change, that they don't make it into a party barn or
Well,
something?
because that would be, I don't know, that's enforcement question, I
When they
think.
would, when they filed their drawings, somebody would flag that, no?
Usually.
There's nothing really to prevent anybody from.
Well, Kevin's right, that's why I
Well,
like Kevin. I mean, he's right, if we're not granting a variance for the barn, then we can't stipulate anything on it. Does anybody care about that?
I don't, I
You
mean, they
care?
have to comply with what the statute says about not expanding the nonconformance,
Mm-hmm,
and what the rest of the zoning code says about all of this.
mm-hmm. Okay.
But having said that, maybe as part of the variance we'd grant for the home as a whole, we could say, probably on that your barn can't be. I think we can tack those
Yeah, I was
stipulations
gonna say,
onto
can we
the,
tack
onto
that
the
on?
variance of the main.
Can we really?
Yeah, it's part of the property, yeah, of course. Just like we could say, we need you to put trees over there. We can say you
Sure.
can't do this to your barn, so I think that works.
Okay.
So I can get there by doing
Yes,
that?
You do a stipulation based on the other part?
Yes. right.
Okay.
Everybody okay if we do that? Sure. Woody,
Okay.
you're looking pretty skeptical, but I'm going with my guy over
No,
here.
don't go with me, Doug. That's just my
So-
personal belief.
So you want to articulate what the steps would be?
Well, no kitchen facilities, no bathroom, no living area, no HVAC equipment. I'm not gonna go to the electrical issue, they need power there.
Well, you
Yeah.
could limit it to, structural, you could be even a little bit more vague and give them restoration only, something along those lines.
I don't understand.
I don't
the
really
difference,
care.
If you think that would cover it.
All I wanna make sure of is that grandma's not living there in 3 years. That's all I wanna make sure of.
And they're gonna basically keep the structure.
Yeah, all they're doing is putting in a rat slab, and they're not gonna lift the house, they're just gonna be
Yeah.
barn.
I don't think
They're going to maintain
And-
and restore.
Yeah,
put a line.
That's fine.
I don't,
Oh, okay.
So it starts falling apart.
I think you could do around five grand anyway.
that's Amy knows very well that if something goes wrong, and they're putting in this slab, and the thing falls down, and they wanna replace it, they're gonna have to come back. Amy knows that, Amy, you know that, right? So, any other comments, questions, or concerns from the board? Woody,
Good?
you okay?
Yep.
All right. So, do I have a motion? Do I have a motion to
I mean, I guess I'll
approve?
make a motion on the interpretation portion. So I move that on the question of an interpretation as to sections 384 and 386 of the Darien zoning regulations, that we find that a variance shall not be needed in the instance where a building is conforming as to use, but non-conforming as to height, setback, yard, land coverage, or parking requirements. And what is being rebuilt does not in any way increase any of those non-conformance, as is the proposal here.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Let's, Woody, catch up. Okay, you move to approve, you second, all in favor? Okay, 5-0.
With those conditions we talked about.
Yes,
Well,
with
the
those
condition- No, but the
conditions.
conditions are gonna be in the next thing.
So,
So separate vote now?
Yeah, now, because that was just a vote on the
Whether
question
variance was
of
the barn and whether, yeah,
and
Whether
their
requires
request
variance.
for our interpretation of the statute.
thank you.
And
Okay.
this is not just applying for this case, this is going
Correct,
forward, right?
correct. Yeah, well, yes, that's what the town.
Precedent.
is going forward, yeah.
So we're kind of handling this in a dual fashion.
Right.
So let's discuss the house, which we kind of have,
Yeah.
but any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, so we're done with that conversation. Do I have a motion to approve?
Sure, I mean, I move that we approve the variance request based on the unique characteristics of the property, the hardship, and this being the minimum adjustment necessary, and in addition, reducing the nonconformance as to flood issues with the following stipulations as related to the barn on the property. Go.
Bingo.
That was
And,
good.
and we've recorded those stipulations, right? Woody, do you have those?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay. Wait a minute, what are we doing here?
Well, yeah.
Hang on.
What was that?
Hang on. Time out. Not sure, you want to, what's the issue?
The issue is the stipulations on the barn.
Or I wasn't clear on that?
Well, that's what I asked Woody. I said, Woody, do you have those recorded?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Okay,
When we draft up the decision, sometimes the chair adjusts the language slightly, but we'll have to work on that.
okay.
No living space, no HVAC, preserve the existing structure. There was a comment about comply with zoning, I guess. You meant use?
I think what was meant was that we don't want the use to change.
Okay,
And if it falls down in the process of shoring it up, they have
Yeah.
to come back to
Yeah.
us for any
that's
variance.
the
Yeah,
preserve
we
existing
want to make sure the
structure.
applicant heard that,
Okay,
that if something happens to the structure and it comes down, you got to come back, okay?
yep, okay.
Okay. Everybody okay now?
I'll second.
Okay, so who made the motion to approve?
Second.
You did, you second, all in favor? Okay, 5-0. Okay, we're done here. And everybody can thank me for doing this tonight because it's already 5 after 9 and that was one application. So I'm glad we didn't do it on a busy night. Good luck with P&Z, you guys.
We need to,
Yes, sir. Yikes. I tried to keep that short.
Wait a minute, we're still in a meeting. We're still in a meeting.
we need to go to other business.
Oh,
Some other business?
oh, we have some other business. No problem, Amy, don't worry about it. We're fine. It got a little complicated because of the 2 different things, so. If you have any questions, please, obviously, feel free to call Woody in the morning. Okay? Yes, ma'am. Okay, so we'll move on to other business. Here's, agenda's right in front of me. Lucky me. All right, so I know that everybody's look at the calendar. Not that it means too much right now because no one knows what they're doing in 2024. But in any event, anybody have any particular problems?
I don't have any problem, but I know one of them is on Valentine's Day, so I don't know if that's going to.
Oh, Woody, nice catch. I'm always worried about St. Patrick's Day.
Woody,
I
you're
see-
so
That was
calendar
a
hard.
week. St. Patrick's Day.
Woody,
Sure.
Yes, I am sure.
did you really? We can't do that. You can't do that.
Rick, I was-
Thank you for picking up on that. I'm not married.
Which is all the more reason why you might actually celebrate.
I know.
February
Oh,
February 14, is that always Valentine's?
Yes, Woody.
February.
Doesn't matter what day of the week.
I don't even
Yeah.
know what to say.
Woody, you're
shows
gonna
how
have to
many
move-
other people
You're gonna have to
actually
move that one. All right, so we're voting not to adopt that. Scratch it.
I'll be damned.
Election of officers, we'll get to that. Woody, just redo the meeting schedule. And by the way, Woody, before I forget, what date is the October meeting? I know that's way out, but
Oh, this year?
do you happen to know?
Oh,
It doesn't really matter. I'm not
don't
gonna
think I
be
do.
here for a couple of weeks in October, just so you know. Okay,
Wait.
moving on. Reports to be considering request release of performance bond. Where are we with that? That's Jana and Gary,
Jana and
isn't it?
Gary.
All right, well, we're
There's
out
been a
of
little bit of progress, but
Good.
not much.
Okay, historic preservation.
I don't have an update yet. I gotta
Okay.
go back to the legal team. I'm trying to be sensitive to using town council, very minimal use.
Well,
But
you know,
I'm not
every
getting
time I
any
turn
answer.
around, somebody's talking to town council.
Exactly.
Okay, we're good with that. General discussion, we're okay. Okay, any other business that anybody needs to do, Woody? Are we good?
You want to do an election or? you-
No, I
you
said we'll
postpone
address that later. Yeah, thank you.
Next time.
Okay. Everybody good? Can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
A motion.
I'll second. All in favor? Have a nice evening,
Nice
everybody.
job, Mr. Chair.
Holy